Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining Sisterly Chats tonight. And I am so honored to have our guest for tonight, Miss Erica Michelle Bailey. Erica, thank you so much for joining us and just for who you are as a person. So before we get started, Erica, I'm just going to say hello to everyone who's joining. As always, there's going to be so much value. Make sure that you share. Because I do know that tonight's conversation is going to be valuable and it's going to stretch us and help us to grow. So again, Erica, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us tonight. We greatly appreciate the gift that you are. And I always like to start off the chats by asking, if someone were to meet you, what type of sister friend are you?
Oh gosh, I am the type of sister friend that you can't get rid of, right? So I have like friendships that's over 30 years. And although we may not talk all the time, I'm that sister friend that'll do the drive-by for you. And and
Right.
check on you. And it might be a virtual drive by. It might be where I physically have to get in the car and drive by. But I'm that sister friend you can't get rid of.
I like that. That's good. That's good. So Erica's the type of good friend that you want to have around, the one that will check on you and make sure you're okay.
Yes.
So, Erica, you are also a woman of many talents and gifts. So, I know you as a part of the Girl I See You movement. But for those who have no idea about this awesome community, can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yes, well, let me first say, first of all, thank you so much because having you in the community is definitely an asset. And that's one of the things that I thrive for. So God gave me this community. Actually, this May will be 3 years. So we'll be doing a 3-year anniversary. And when before this ever became a community, it was just a campaign. It was a campaign that I believe God gave me for me, like it was to help me. And then after the campaign was done, which it was a 31 days of prayer for her was the campaign. So I found myself, going to God, like, God, what's going on? I know you don't see me, God, what's going on? Like, this is going on in my life. And of course, we know God sees us. God doesn't, He's not in heaven and he put on blindfolders. But, you get to this place in your life sometimes where you're like, hey, God, where you at? And so I never forget this conversation between God and I, and it was through the word. So for those of you who may say, well, what you mean this conversation was through the word? And I was crying, literally crying out to God. And I'm like, God, okay, you got me up to this point, but where are you? Like, I felt lost. I felt defeated. I felt like, I had been taken advantage of. It was some business things that I had been doing that he had told me to do. So long story short, he took me to the word of God and he showed me where, first of all, he see me. Second of all, any situation that I was in, he's been there with me the whole time. And then from there, he's saying, listen, my word says this. And he just began to bring me through the word. And one of the things that he let me know was that when you take your eyesight or your thought process off of you and put them on others is when God has time to work this thing out for you. So for 31 days, it was a 31 days for her prayer for her. So the key was for 15 minutes a day that we would make the commitment. I didn't know who we was because I didn't have a we. I didn't have no following, and I put it out there. And I want to say, I will not tell a lie, like we had over 90 women. And for me, it wasn't about the numbers. It was about the unity. It was about this thing that says, I'm willing to support someone. So we prayed for other women for 31 days. So after I was like, okay, yes, God, I did what you told me to do. And I kept hearing, from women like, well, what do we do now that we're done? I'm like, hey, I did my part. I mean, I even had women that was like, well, I'll take the torch. And I'm like, and I'll support you. But I was done with this part that God told me. And then God sent a word through a young lady that I didn't know personally. She too followed, I follow her on Facebook. She followed me. And she had given me a word, and I said, well, God, if this is truly you, not that I questioned the word, but I didn't want to be obedient to the word. because it was giving me further instructions. So long story short, I prayed and I asked God. I'll never forget, I went to the company that was helping me with branding and marketing at that time. And I shared with the young lady just one thing that God had gave me, which is, girl, I see you. But I didn't know, like, what do you do with that? Like, is that a quote? Am I supposed to coin that? You don't know. And so she said, well, I'm going to take it before God, and you go before God, and I'm more than sure he'll answer. And fast forward, God shared with me, he said, this will be a movement. Now, the young lady who came to me that didn't know me, that I didn't know her, we knew of each other, but she had already told me, God said two things. She said, God said, this will be a movement, and you will you will create a journal. You will create a journal. And I didn't want to hear that, because I was like, I'm done with what God told me. And so long story short, here we are. May will be the third year of prayers for her, which has, God has evolved it from that. But the Girl I See You community is, I believe it is a support group, not just a support group where you just show up and nothing happens. To me, it's an incubator where women of faith, they come, and, so many things happen in the incubator. Some people need to mature. Some people need healing. Some people need just somebody to be there to watch over them, their spirit, to care for them as they grow and they walk out what God has given them. And so it's been amazing what he has been doing here in this community, not just with the women, but with me,
Yeah. No, that's good. And that's powerful how you describe that. So I think you're speaking to what a lot of people feel, because I can say your story really related to me. When God gives you something, you're like, all right, time's up. I did it. Let me go about my life, because you know that there's a lot of pouring out that happens. When he stretches us and we become open to what he has for us, then there's also responsibility to grow ourselves, but then to grow other people. And then we're like, I'm out. Like, I really want to be out. But because of your obedience, there's fruit. There are people who are helped by you saying yes.
Yes.
Now, I want to ask, because I know that there's some of us who struggle with that, because I know that you mentioned in one of your broadcasts, and it was so powerful and a bunch of so much wisdom that it's like, ooh. And so I want everyone to know that as well. When you're a part of the Girl I See You community, there's a lot of wisdom that you can munch on for days. So don't think you're just going to drive by and
not happening.
Right. And run out. No, there's a bunch of wisdom that's there. But you mentioned that sometimes as women, we feel like we don't do other women. I've said that before, and I know other people have said that as well. And so there was a need to be open, because you have a ministry to women, to also be available to listen as they poured into you. So what would you say to people who kind of struggle with that? Because maybe they've been hurt, or maybe they're like, I need community, but I tried that. What would you say to that woman?
I have to be very honest with you, because every day I am still at the altar, if that makes sense, right? So not that something happens every day, but every day I'm still at the altar, at the feet of Jesus, saying, God, the very thing you've asked me to do, I'm talking about in the niche he's asked me to do it, I get challenged on this thing, God. How do you expect me to go and tell and encourage someone else if I can't overcome the challenge? So what I say to women who say, I can't do women, it's always messing women. I tried that and it didn't work. If I can be honest, if I really can be honest, that, that's who I'm practicing to be. The reason you can't do women, the reason you've tried it and it doesn't work, the reason that, God has called you as a solo, which is never true, is because there is still some things in you. See, because what I've learned was the type of people that draw themselves to you is like a magnet, right? A magnet doesn't draw lead. It's either a magnet, another magnet that comes together. And I had to start being honest with myself. And the reason why, one of the reasons why I didn't do women, or I would half obey what God say. He would say, 5 years ago, God told me, this is what I want you to do. And I said, okay, what I'm gonna do is, God, I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna do it through young girls, right? So I figured one day they're gonna be women. God, gosh, you got to bless this. And yeah, he allowed me to do it. And it was so much triumph and so much trouble, and so many hardships building the nonprofit organization because I was not being obedient. And so what I realized and what I would say to her is what I had to say to myself, because no one else said it to me. And that's what hurt the most, is because no one else, I'm going to just say, didn't have the courage to say, listen, girl, you don't do other people because you got some issues with yourself. And see, so usually people that draw people, if they're like you, they begin to resemble you. They begin to talk like you. They begin to act like you. And that's a hard pill to swallow when you have someone who, do this and, and so what happened was God said, listen, no matter how you try to dress it up, I've called you to it. Now, how long it take you to get to it is up to you. And I had to start doing the work in me. And so every day I'm still at the altar, because I understand that what God is calling me to is going to bring back some memories. It's going to be women that used to be like me, or they're going to have some attributes that I had. And, and those like attributes can sometimes, even though God has delivered you out of it, if you're not careful, either you're going to pull them to you or it'll pull you to them. And so I just say to her, and it's not to be mean, and it's not to be to make anybody feel bad. And that's why I started off with, I'm still at the altar, because I need her to know it's a daily walk every day. Let me tell you, I have gotten tested. I have gotten, I've gotten messages from women that I'm like, wait, God, I was, and whatever it was, I was helping them, I was whatever. And God said, yeah, and it's still possible, but you can't stop, you got to go, you got to get on that altar. And so I believe it's something in you that is attracting the thing that you are so much trying to fight to get away from.
That's good. That's definitely good. And what I heard in your sharing is really understanding that we all have a story, and that we can try to cutesify the story and pretend that wasn't us.
Okay.
But it's more powerful when we own the story, because God doesn't disown us.
Yes.
Disown our story, but that can be used to help someone else. They can't be helped with a partial book. They can only be helped with the full volume.
Come on, girl. My God.
That's good.
That's good.
I know we're like all high-fiving over here.
That's good, sis. That's good.
There's a lot of wisdom to that. So I hope you guys are taking notes, again, sharing with your friends, because I can relate to that, Erica. I have been one of those women like, Jesus, women, really? Nah, I'm good. But also what I heard you say is that by you serving, you're helping other people. And I think sometimes we can feel that it's really all about us.
Wow.
And it's not about service. And you really have captured that heart of, service and servanthood, and it being about other people. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Now,
you also mentioned something too, because sometimes we have these hurts, we've been talked about, or maybe we've been misused, or we helped a sister friend out, and then that sister friend disappeared on us, and now we're in this place of, I don't want to reach out because I'm afraid. Not so much I don't do women, but I'm afraid. Can you speak to that again for someone who might need that help?
Yes, I can, because one of the scriptures that I feed myself, right? That first of all, fear is not from God, right? Because listen, fear is definitely a tactic from the enemy to keep us from operating in faith. If he can keep us on the other side of faith, which is fear, then he doesn't even have to worry about you. You're not even a challenge to him. You're not even him worth coming back. If he can keep you in that corner, right? And so I've been there, and not as a victim. I'm a victor of that, because what I've learned is that when I get in the situation, or when those situations occur, right? I have learned now. I'm not saying I was that then. I'm talking about now that I up my service, my servanthood, my servant heart. And although that it was taken for granted, if that's what we would say, but God says all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord and is called according to his purpose. So when you have the call, you better know it's going to be some stuff that's going to come with that, right? It may not be intentionally. They didn't set out and wake up that morning and say, you know what? I'm going to use Erica. I'm going to be a part of her coaching group, and I'm going to decide not to pay her. I'm just using one for an example. Right. I ain't saying no names. Right. And you saying, God, wait, I'm over delivering. I'm giving you more than you could ever get, because your money making me rich, but I'm doing it because I'm rich in God. And so for you, the one who's saying, you know what, I've given, I'm not giving no more. I'm not giving my time. I'm not giving my talent. I'm not giving my treasure. And don't call me. But the Bible tells us that God created us to be givers. And this is the thing. You can't ever outgive God. You can't ever outgive God. And then when you think about giving something to someone, so I don't loan anymore. Family, friends, I don't loan. Don't call me asking, can you loan me? Because I don't loan anymore. If I can't give it to you, because that means I don't want anything back in return from you, I'm sorry, I don't have it. I don't have the time, the energy to spend right now, because you know what? I can't get that back. I don't have the resources anymore, not because I don't love you, but I think you need to create a relationship with someone else. Maybe your value system may be different with them, but for me, I don't have it. So my biggest thing that I've inherited is I have become comfortable with saying no. See, a lot of times we get taken advantage of because I'm a give. God, he will want me to give. And that's true, sister. Don't get me wrong. It is so true. But there comes a time where you have to use wisdom and say, God, maybe my giving season for her or them or they is up. Do you believe that? I believe that. I don't believe God would keep you in a place of giving, because in order for us to truly to get strong in something, as you give out, something has to be poured back into you. So whether it's a relationship, and it's on life support, sis, you have been giving, you've been coming to the hospital, you've been doing visitations, you've been bringing food, you've been bringing gifts. And listen, God is saying at any time, I like to pull a lifeline, but he will not do that, because he knows that, you honor this thing. So if you are having problems with being taken advantage of, and I'm not doing this no more, I am saying you will continue to keep on, those cycles will continue to repeat until you learn that, first of all, your value system, has to change. You have to value you. And then you have to get okay with the word no and understand that's not mean. That is a word that says, in the sentence, nothing else is needed. No, I can't be of service to you anymore. And when I begin to learn to be okay with that, sis, I'm telling you, my life has changed tremendously.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think even in that, you said so much that, again, we need to understand. Jesus had boundaries. It wasn't like everyone could come up in this space at any time. It's midnight, he's resting. Hey, do you have a word for me? Well, no, if he was resting, he was okay with resting. If he was spending time with friends, he was okay spending time with friends. He had time for healing. He had time for community, but he had time for himself. And I think sometimes we think, like you said, no is an ugly word. And if we say no, what are they going to say? What are they going to do? Well, people are going to say things anyway. Who likes to hear no? You look at a child, you tell them, no, you can't have that candy. They're going to cut up. But at the same time, no teaches people. No teaches people how to respond. And sometimes us not saying no is really holding up their growth and them becoming all they need to be because we're enabling and we're not helping. So that was really good that you mentioned that. That was very good. Leads me right into another wisdom nugget that you dropped. And I believe that there's a lot of us also as women that deal with this strong personality or this being the strong one.
Yes.
And a lot of times we feel like we have to be everybody's support. We're support to our friends. If we're married, we're support to a spouse. If we have children, we're support to the children. If we're in the community, we're support to the community, ministry, whatever sphere of influence we're in. But why is it a myth that we have to be the strong one?
So if I can just, again, I like to be honest with you. I know my story would come into alignment with what I grew up seeing. Okay, so my mom was and is, she's still here with me, an amazing woman. I saw her strength. I saw her carry the weight of what two people were supposed to do. So we know a household should, resemble a mother and a father. And so, and then my mom has 5 sisters, and my grandmother was a single mother. So of 7 children, she has 6 girls, 1, 2, 3, and one son. And so for me, no one taught me that. It was what I saw. So my mom never sat down and said, hey, you need to be a strong woman and you need to do this, this, and this, and this. It was what I visualized, right? It was what I saw. I saw when she worked 2, 3 jobs sometimes when she could not be there for me. So as life began to go on, my thing was, my father wasn't in the picture. He never owned, he never took responsibility for me. He disowned, saying he didn't have a daughter, all of those things. And so what I began to do was I call it a life jacket. I began to niche my own life jacket, and my life jacket at that time didn't resemble anything with Jesus. So my thing was, I'm going to always work. Even before I had children, sis, I had 2 jobs. Why did I have 2 jobs? Because my mindset said, I'm not going to never not have enough. Why? Because I saw my mom do that. Right? I mean, nothing against my mom did what she had to do to take care of us. And later in life, she did get remarried. I call what I call my dad. He's not my biological dad. And so I then begin to see what that life looked like. But to share the story with you, when I was talking, I shared it in the group about, you don't always have to be the strong one. And that was ministered to me first. And God was telling me, like, you are trying to be, and you have successfully been. And look, you go from trying to being, and you have been successfully, you have been the strong one of all your friends. You're the strongest one. And I don't mean strength. I mean, they come to you for prayer. They come to you for support. They're wherever you need them to be. They come because they believe in you, and, and all of these things. And then I begin to say, God, but I don't like where I am. I don't like this weight is so heavy. He said, cast your cares on me. I never told you to carry that. You begin to create this life jacket for yourself, saying, so when something happens, I can pull the cord and I'm gonna, parachute out, when God has been wanting to be that for me. And so when God began to minister that to me in these last months, and I'm telling you, it's been so strong, sis, because it was a weight that God never intended for me to carry. And so I begin to share, because I always feel like if I am going through or has gone through it, somebody else needs this. Somebody else needs to know, be reminded of what God is saying. And so God told me, he said, Erica, he said, you are an amazing, I'm telling you, these are the conversations. You are amazing. I created you to be a substance of strength. And that's a way of being, but to carry the load is a whole nother thing. And so God began to share with me, and I thought, I need to share this with the women that I share this platform with, to remind them that, hey, even though you may be the single mom, hey, even though you may be the breadwinner, Listen, lean on God, because if you don't, I'm telling you, it's going to take you out mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, financially. I
Yeah.
mean, it will take you out.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. That's good. And when you were talking, sis, it reminded me of the scripture. What does the enemy do? He comes to steal, to kill, and
Mhm.
to destroy. And sometimes he doesn't have a whole lot of destruction to do because we do his job for him by being isolated.
Mhm.
So that's really good that you shared that. And also, I believe it helps us to understand that we're meant to be in covenant with one another. That there's things
Mhm.
that you've walked through that I don't have to bump my head several different times to learn, because if I am connected, I can learn from your wisdom. I can glean from your wisdom. But then
Yeah.
it also helps me to grow, because I don't we don't always see things the way that they are.
Yeah.
Sometimes our thinking can be distorted, our vision can be distorted, because if we're to ourselves, again, the enemy likes to work in our minds and make us feel
Mhm.
like, nobody wants to be around you, nobody likes you, all this kind of stuff. But when we're in community, community teaches good truth.
Mhm.
And that's
Yes.
good truth. And then when we're off, it's like, all right, you done wandered off by yourself. Come on back. And so
Yes.
that's really powerful. And I know that you're touching everyone who's listening in, because we need to understand that as well. So I have one more question for you, sis. And
Okay.
I really appreciate you, again, because I believe also we have to understand this process. Now,
Mhm.
when I talked to my sis, y'all, I was telling her that I wanted to talk about, purpose and
Yeah.
embracing purpose, but I believe we missed the healing part. And so what you have
Yes.
spoken to tonight is, how do we start asking those questions? Why am I trying to do life alone? Who hurt me? Or
Mhm.
who didn't hurt me? Or who am I still offended by, who is long gone, and I'm not carrying out the assignment that God has given me because I'm too busy packing on the weight of yesterday. So
Mhm.
once
That's
you've gone through
good.
that process, you see the freedom. Erica is walking in that freedom, and she continues to walk into that freedom because she's with God. She has that relationship with him. But when you go through the process of healing and embracing all that God has for you, then how can you embrace the purpose or the plan that he has for your life?
Since you said a lot, and I hope I can backtrack a little bit. I don't want to be over my
Yeah,
time, or
you're
whatever.
good.
But for myself, and that's what I like to share, is that I'm a living testimony, right? I'm a living testimony of going through that process. And so I went through a year of a sabbatical, a 1 year sabbatical. And when I went through that, so first of all, I never set out to do no sabbatical. So let me just let y'all know, this wasn't no plan, God-given thing, but it was a God-given thing, but it wasn't my plan. It happened that way when God saw, listen, okay, I felt like God was in heaven, like, okay, I have to grab her right now, because if I don't, I might possibly lose her. You know how you feel about your child? You're like, I'm trying to let them do this their way, but something about what they do just isn't coming out right. And so it's now been over 5 years ago. I went through my 1 year sabbatical, Woman's Journey to Self-Love, Healing, and His Masterpiece. And one of the first things that I had to do, and it was a complete 12 months. And again, it was never intended to be anything other than a part of my healing process. God needed me to heal. And the way I was trying to do it was not going to happen. Meaning the way I knew I was used to doing it. He's like, no, it's not going to work. So the first thing I'm going to tell her is that you have to get before God. What you have been doing, it maybe temporarily it's helped you, maybe a partial, maybe you healed in this area and then this area got worse, and you healed in that area and then this popped up again. And so the first thing God told me, he said, Erica, he said, this is what I need you to do. I need you to be okay with mourning. See, one of the things that we think mourning only has to do with the physical death of a person, but mourning has to do MOUR, the mourning, like a mourn, like you must mourn. And so we think about that as being, some words that we may say, you're weak, and how could you don't trust God, and and all of these things. And I physically never realized that I didn't mourn some of the things that I thought I was over. I never thought I had an issue with having a dad who wasn't present. I was like, he was never in my life. How can you miss something you don't have? But in reality, even though I may have not missed it physically, it showed up in my actions again towards other people. I was a self-sabotager. So before you would end a relationship with me, and I'm not talking about a romantic relationship, I'm talking about platonic, I'm talking about girlfriend relationship, sister-girl relationships, I would sabotage it so that you wouldn't be able to walk out in my life. So God had to take me through that process. So the first month I went straight through mourn, accept, and release. And so releasing takes time. It takes, it may be a reoccurring thing. You might release it today, you think you're good, and then somebody press that button and then it's back again. So again, God began to give me this process for me. Now, I thought it was for me and it was good, and I would journal and I would talk about it. And I never forget praying after I got to the 12th month, and I didn't know what God was going to do. I was no longer was a part of Facebook. I had left. I didn't tell nobody bye. I had changed my phone number. It was all of these things. Yes. And so God said, okay, I remember the day that he gave me the okay to log back into Facebook. And so I never forget, someone popped up and said, oh, hey, like they missed me. And I was like, oh my God, because you think no one cares, no one will miss you, no one knew. And people just start saying, hey, welcome back, like, good to see you. And I'm sharing this to say, because some people are so fearful of disconnecting from something, because they think if I disconnect, then God, what's going to happen with my business? What's going to happen with my ministry? What's going to happen with my friendships? What are they going to say? But listen, the healing process for you may take you having to disconnect from some things so that God can have your undivided attention. And when I tell you that it had been like, once I came back, sis, it's been what the kids say, on and popping. Like he began to rebuild the ministry that he had given me. It wasn't mine anyway. So who am I to say, well, God, if you take me off the map, what's going to happen? Everything just fell in place. So I am saying, and I'm pleading, and I will continue to pray for that woman, that don't be afraid to get your instructions from God. You try mama, you try sister Nim, you call your girlfriend, you might even try your pastor, and he's giving you some biblical concepts. You got your prayer partner and she's telling you something. And then, the enemy, he's always trying to whisper in your ear. But I'm going to tell you that if you put your ear to the mouth of God and you put your heart in the arms of God, I'm telling you that is the first step. You have to be willing to say, God, hey, God, it's me. Like, I really need you right now. And he will begin to give you the steps in order for you to truly heal. And after the healing process, it continues. So you don't get healed and you're done. You have to continue to stay at the feet of Jesus. You have to continue to stay in the community that God is calling you to, whether it's 2, 5, 10, or 100. You have to have a community. And listen, that community has to be a community of women, other women who aren't afraid to say. They're not your yes buddies. They're saying, hey, sis, I'm starting to notice this pattern, or hey, sis, how are you doing? You have to make sure that I call it the system, my sisters, but there are a system for me. And I know I need that. I know I need that support, because God never intended for me to do this on my own. So that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And there's two things as you were talking that I could visualize. One is how a branch by itself is not a part of the tree. It's not receiving the nutrients that the whole complete tree is. And so we have, God simplifies things that we think are okay, like I'm going to be good by myself. I don't need anybody else. I can work this out by myself. Well, have you ever seen a branch by itself grow? No, it's
No.
not. It's not. And then second of all, you said something very powerful about how when we are healed, we have an obligation not only to continue to walk out our healing, but to be obedient to reach out to other people. And when you saw people healed in scripture, it wasn't like they got healed and they got to say, all right, the woman at the well didn't say, all right now, I'm good. But what did she do? She went back and she told her story so that someone else could be helped.
Yes.
You know, so that was wisdom there that, you know, if you feel like, well, I've been healed from this, I'm good. I don't have to do other women. Be mindful that that's not how it works. How it works is that you are meant to be a service. You're meant to be a blessing. You're meant to be an example, but you're supposed to help someone else.
Yes.
So I really appreciate you so much, sis, for just sharing the wisdom that you have with us tonight. And guys, again, I'm going to really encourage you to be a part of the Girl I See You movement. It is powerful. It is changing lives. So be a part, you know, get connected. But sis, and you know, coming to a close, what are some things that are coming up? I know what's coming up.
Yeah.
I'm connected, but I want to let y'all know. So, what are some things that are coming up that we can support, participate in?
Yeah, most definitely, sis. You know, one of the biggest things for me with the Girl I See You platform is it is imperative that I utilize my platform, and I don't mean the platform that God has given me to endorse other women, to share with other women, to inspire other women, that you don't have to wait for a stage invitation. You don't have to wait for a time to sit around a table. Like, you belong at the table. So build your table. You belong on the stage, if that's what God has said. So create your own stage. And maybe your stage is a virtual stage. Maybe your stage is a physical stage. Maybe your stage is in, you know, in a local women's shelter, domestic violence, you know, whatever your stage is. So the one thing that has not gone away is, I told you that the Girl I See You community, I believe, was birthed off from prayer, right? From me being obedient and hosting 31 days of prayer. So every year what we do, we celebrate our anniversary. It's ours. A movement is nothing without women to help move. I'm not a movement by myself. And so we have so the last few years, God had given me the theme, which is prayers are weapon. And so this year I was like, okay, yes, last year when I started planning for this year, I was like, yes, this is time for a new theme. And God said, no. And so this year we walked into 2019 with prayers her weapon, but it's prayers her weapon, the finale, right? The finale. And so what is that? That means that this part of the journey is coming to a close, but we know that there's something greater. So this for the month of May, we're going to have 31 women that I will be interviewing live every night, 31 days of women who has can share their testimony, their story, whatever it is that has happened in their life, based on the prayer is her weapon. How have you utilized prayer as your weapon? And so I'm still gonna need women for that. It's been amazing. I put the request out to Women God Led Me To, so we're what we say halfway full. And so I'll be putting the request out to other women who have a testimony. And so I'm asking women to keep us in prayer about that. We know how technology goes. We know how things happen in life, you know, and so May will be here soon. So 31 days we'll be doing that. And I'm believing God is going to show up and show out. The 1st of June, June 1, I told you guys 2 years ago, God sent a word to me and said you would write a journal. And although to some people, you know, they might say I can write a journal overnight, but the journal that God wanted me to give birth to didn't happen overnight. This is year 3 and it has finally come to life, if that makes sense. And so it's prayers her weapon. It's a prayer journal and devotional for women of faith. And so it is my prayers for her. It is my stories to her, because again, it's always about me giving back to someone else. And so that book we will start pre-ordering April 1st, and then we will start actually orders in the month of May, and then we have the book signing and brunch. And here's what I love about this, because I'm thinking about this brunch and book signing, and I'm saying, God, this is what the norm is. A book signing is all about you, the author. I get it. I love it. And I said, but God, this journey hasn't been about me, just about me. It's been about amazing women who have, in some way, some form, participated in this journey, right? And so I have the pleasure of sharing my platform with some women who are going to speak and share their testimony of making how prayer has become their weapon. We'll have some amazing things going. It's not going to be the normal book signing, because I don't do really anything normal. Everything God has asked me to do has been unnormal to the normal person, and just all about him. So I don't usually push the group, because I feel like the women who are supposed to be there, somehow they get there. But I ask, if you are looking for a community, a extension, a support group, a lifeline, we are there. I know there's other amazing women organizations, but this is where you come for your spiritual refill. It's where you come. Now, listen, don't come and get filled and then think you're going to leave, because I will call you and ask you to pour in just as much as you receive. And so that is the next, the next few things that's coming up. And I'm excited about it, because I really don't know what's going to happen, but I believe God. Can you just believe God? Yeah.
That's good. That's good. And I want to thank you, sis, for how you pour in, for creating a community of value, but showing us tonight how taking the story and walking through the healing process can be a blessing, and also staying consistent. That's one thing I can say, which is a blessing about you as well, is that you're staying consistent to the call. Yeah. You're not sometimey with it, or you lay it down, but you're consistent with it. So thank you so much for how you're pouring into the lives of other women. We appreciate you, and just know that God is going to continue to expand and bless the things that he has given for you to do.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And I just want to tell you, thank you so much. I've been praying for this day, because I know that, your gift is making room for you. And it's such a peaceful thing. It's like, I can't even explain it. You have to be a part of it to really know. So just know, and that's just my words to you, that continue to do it the way God has given you, because this is the way that some of us need it, without the fluff, without the all of the limelight and all of that, just simplicity, but yet it is definitely breakthrough. So thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to share your platform, and I pray God's blessings continue to flow through you and every woman there is to come that will grace this platform that you have said yes to God for.
I appreciate it, sis. Well, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Again, please share, because this is a lot of wisdom. I'm going to go back and take some more notes myself. So we love you guys. And until the next time.
God bless you. Thank you.